Hello and welcome to 5 Minute Mastery Photography Tips for Creatives. In this series, I'll be sharing with you tips on how to enhance yourself as a photographer because the honest truth is, unless you improve yourself, sometimes clients are not gonna see you and you're not gonna get hired. Hence, I am here as your boy Takundel Peace Mint Ishipomo to share with you tips on how to improve yourself as a photographer. If you have not yet liked, shared, and subscribed to my channel, this is the time for you to do so because, we're getting into it. So without further ado, let's just jump into another tip, which is how to understand Aperture Priority Mode, which is also known as AV or A on most cars. Number one, understand what the AV or A mode does, which means it lets you control aperture and the camera takes care of it as. What is aperture? Aperture is referring to how wide or close your camera is in reference to how much it is that is in focus within your camera. So when your camera is set to f1.8, it is then open, and in it being opened, this means very few of the subject is in focus. But when you close it down to a number such as f22 and focus into infinity, it means so much of the subject is in focus. So number one thing that you need to do is to understand what the AB or A mode means, the aperture priority mode. Number two, it is used for portraits or scenes where the subject is not moving. I've often realized that aperture priority would work best for you if you put it and you start shooting portrait. Hence, you'll be able to see that nice and sweet bokeh within the subject. Therefore, it separates the subject from the background, but also making a good unison between the subject and the background in that sweet bokeh, which is quite blurry, and it makes for nice and attractive portrait. Hence, that will be one of the key deterring factors into which you can use aperture priority mode. Key takeaway number three, it is ideal for low light situations and also when you're shooting steady subjects that are not shaking or moving. When you're shooting in low light situation, I've often realized that a number of photographers who shoot in aperture priority mode is because they're shooting in low light environments, as instead of compensating with a flashlight, you will then switch and open up your aperture to f 1.2, 1.8, 2.2, and that makes sure that the camera now lets in more light that would otherwise be provided within the situation and the environment that you're shooting in. In this case, it would be a dark space. I'll put in examples of what this looks like in the description, and then you'll be able to see low light environments would then be ideal for when you're shooting and switching your camera to aperture priority mode, and then it takes care of the lens. So sometimes you will notice that because you are taking control of the shutters the aperture that you're shooting with, then it means settings such as shutter speed will vary, and some of the images were motion blur and some of them will be just as is. So these are some of the key takeaways that you very need to understand because you are not shooting in full or the manual mode. So sometimes the camera might decide in its own, depending on the scenario in which you're shooting, and make the settings best for what it determines. So these are some of the advantages now of when you're shooting an aperture priority mode instead of shooting full manual mode. Key number four, watch your ISO and use exposure compensation if needed. Because you're shooting in aperture priority mode, then you will notice that the ISO is quite low. You need to keep it at a lower state because now when you're shooting, the ISO tends to then create more noise when you're shooting if you increase the ISO. But because you're shooting in a low light situation, sometimes it is necessary to then bump up that ISO, and then it helps to compensate for the noise and for the focus and the light that is coming in with your camera. So you need to bump up the ISO to a certain number, which is comfortable because nowadays cameras can go to the ISO about a minute now, and they will still be nice without any noise. So these are some of the key takeaways that you would need. But also, I have to make sure to note this. It's always a point of argument among photographers as to should you push your ISO to above 1200, 3200, 6400, whatever number it is, ISO noise compensation scenarios. But I should just say, it should be there determined by the environment and how you feel about your image. Because also, we cannot run away from the fact that Adobe is now as good as they come when it comes to noise reduction. Even in-body noise reduction is also as quick. So try and play around with your camera and make sure you get the settings as one. Key points number 5. Choose the right aperture for storytelling. I cannot stress this enough. Sometimes images do not make sense because you have shot at f1.8 when the subject and the background needs to be in focus. So it is also wise, don't just go into the situation, into the space, and start shooting at f1.8, 1.2. It's not always necessary. Yes, it makes for beautiful portraits, but sometimes use your mind to just then determine, okay, fine, do I want a good aperture, which is quite a big bokeh, or should I then just keep it and make sure that everything that I want to shoot is being focused? Particularly when you're shooting a landscape image, when you're shooting wildlife photography, you're gonna need as much aperture to be closed down as you need. So you'll be shooting it about at 11 aperture, so that the keys, the subjects together with the environment is in focus. But also remember, it is a determining factor which is entirely up to you, so that you can tell this story in the best manner possible. These are the key takeaway 5 points that I have to share with you on aperture priority. If you liked this video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Tell somebody that there's a Chris Clip on YouTube. He is making videos on how you can improve and make sure that you're the best photographer that you can. Before I close, if you're stuck for this video up to this point, I then want you to keep it for the last bonus tip, which is, it is good if you're a beginner photography so that you learn how to control motion in your images. So if you're still beginning, try and play around with aperture priority and see if you like it. And then it will be nice and enjoyable. Because I remember when I first started, I would always shoot in full automatic mode, and I enjoyed my images. I didn't see anything wrong. It is only later that I then discovered manual mode, aperture priority mode, and then I started playing around. So make sure to play around with the camera and get as much information as you can about your camera and enjoy the beauty of creativity and being a photographer. My name is Takunda Peace Lex Como. This is 5-minute madness or 5-minute mastery on how to enhance and enhance yourself as a photographer. Thank you so much for watching. This Miracle Next Time. Adios. Bum, 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 bum.